Welcome back to the 1% Insight, your podcast for all things B2B tech marketing. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Micheál McGrath, VP of Marketing and Business Development at VisibleThread. VisibleThread is the company that sells RFP and proposal intelligence software into some of the most demanding B2B buyers in the world. As well as his role at VisibleThread, Micheál is also a part-time lecturer at MTU Cork. Welcome to the podcast, Micheál.
Thanks so much, Jack. Delighted to be here. Yeah, it's great.
Before we kind of get started, if you'd like to kind of give our listeners some insight into VisibleThread, the work you do, and your role at VisibleThread.
Sure, absolutely. So I'm based in Cork. My name is Micheál McGrath, as you said. VisibleThread, we're an RFP software solution for really anyone going after kind of government contracts or commercial contracts. So you can imagine the government puts out a contract to build a road or a medicine or any infrastructure piece, and companies want to bid to win that. They use our software to support the analysis of those bids, but also the writing of those bids. Lots of AI, lots of deterministic software built into that too. Yeah, it's a great role. My role runs the marketing team and also the SDR team, so I have a direct connection with sales. We're an up-and-coming business. We're a small business, but we're working with some of the largest logos in the world, 10 years in the industry, and we're very proud of what we're doing. So I'm delighted to be part of it. And yeah, I'm delighted to be here today as well, a fellow Cork person. I'm based in Middleton. So yeah, it's nice to be on a Cork marketing podcast. Yeah, it's great to see these happening.
Brilliant stuff. So running straight into part one, which is looking at combining marketing and sales to win new business, and especially winning new business in highly regulated markets that, yourself and VisibleThread operate within. How do you kind of go about that? Because your role is combining obviously marketing and the business development side of things. So when you're selling into that type of very regulated industries, usually the B2B buying committees and B2B buyers have a lack of trust at the start. They're not as open to maybe receiving marketing material. They're a bit more closed off than maybe other industries. So what does combining marketing and sales actually look like when you're trying to win business in a regulated market? And where do most B2B tech companies get it wrong?
$1 million question in a way. It's tough. It can be very difficult because it's a little bit, it varies really. So sometimes we might have a sales cycle that's really quick. And but then sometimes you're selling into a huge organization with hundreds of thousands of employees, like some of our customers like Boeing or Airbus or Verizon. Like there's just every one of these organizations are different and they have different procurement routes. And our sales team, and really I suppose what you're suggesting is here as a combined effort, all our kind of external functions need to ride that wave of these different organizations and the way they have different procurements. What that actually means day to day to me, and a lot of people talk about sales and marketing need to be joined at the hip. I suppose I try my best to, it has to even be more than that. Like it has to be almost intertwined. I think the best marketers I've worked with, they know every sales deal inside out as well as the head of sales. And that's something that I try and invoke. I need to know why a deal is progressing, why it's not progressing. And it is what's difficult about it. There isn't probably a magic formula. Like it's not just the case of every enterprise organization, the route is like this. Every SMB organization, the route is much easier and it's streamlined. It's not as simple as that. The way the buying process is now, people are way more educated coming in, so they know a lot more about your product before they even talk to a sales rep or download a piece of marketing. They're way more in tune on what you're doing. So it's just being aware of all those facts. And I suppose I'm incredibly joined at the hip with our salespeople. And you ask me kind of where are most people going wrong. I think maybe they're only looking at that relationship. They're only looking at marketing and sales because they hate each other and they're just like that. And that's the kind of the common perception. But I think it's also CS and product. So it's those four functions. They need to be joined at the hip, all four. If they're not all working together, you're at nothing. So from a marketer perspective, I need to know the product timelines, what's coming, why we're building it, how we're building it, why it stands out. From a CS perspective, why are people leaving? Why are people churning? Why are people loving the product? Why is usage up? Why is usage down? And sales cycles, why are they moving? Why are they not moving? If I'm in control of all of that and I understand all of that, I can inform the marketing team and the marketing strategy so much better. I think it's the siloed approach, probably. I think everyone is trying to conquer the marketing and sales scenario. I try to look a little bit beyond that.
In terms of the marketing function, so obviously we're trying to get as many, potential buyers in. We're trying to get, people on demos and increase the chances for sales to, convert and win new business. How do you view in the marketing piece that those early stages in terms of the brand versus demand? So like, we hear a lot now these days about, buyers taking longer before they actually get in contact with your sales team. As you mentioned just there, they're a lot more educated. They're on, LLMs, conducting a lot of research. They're creating shortlists of potential vendors. Everything, they have all the information at their fingertips nowadays, and they're forming buying opinions before they even, get in touch with your company. How do you find that marketing piece to try and win that trust early on when maybe you can't see them? They're the invisible buyer, but they're out there, they're out of market, but they will be in market at some stage in the future. How do you find that mix and that challenge of trying to win that trust, but also build that awareness with maybe people that you can't track in your pipeline right away?
I think it's a really good question, because it's generally where marketers get frustrated, maybe because they can't get budget for brand and they feel like brand is absolutely needed. And it's also like a lot of marketers enjoy doing the brand side of things. And that's nothing to be ashamed of either. I think there's a lot of interesting things that marketers can do on the brand side, and also under complete control of it. Like, so where I talked about earlier, when you're doing stuff further down the funnel, it's you're in tandem with sales, but you're also in tandem with the procurement cycle of the organization trying to sell to. So you're not as in control. Do a big brand piece. It's kind of just how well you do it in terms of how much traffic you get and how much engagement you get. So I think marketers will always like want to do more brand things, but are they getting internal pushback is generally where it comes from. For me, it's about, one, you just have to have a balance. You just have to, like, I look at everything we do. So any campaign we do, it has to have a mix of, this typical flywheel stuff, awareness, engaging, and delighting the people, or whatever way structure you want to do that, middle of the funnel or end of the funnel or whatever. So I just try and always have a bit of a balance. I also try to incorporate as many internal leaders as possible in the brand stuff, because they're generally want to be involved in it, and when they can see the value of it themselves, like they're getting the interactions on LinkedIn themselves, like they can really kind of see that. Or if they so I generally do a lot of like interviews with the CEO or interviews with the product team, and that kind of stuff is brand awareness pieces. And there's a lot of anecdotal feedback that kind of flows through the business that goes, oh yeah, okay, it's not generating much leads, or it's hard to tie it to close one, but I feel it working. I'm getting the engagements back. And I suppose marketers do need to have like a serious memory as well, because I think 5 years ago back to when someone, commented on something or went to an event that was more brand awareness focused, and it goes closed 5 years later. And I try to bring up those stories as much as I can in like leadership meetings, because it just shows. And I do around, I know we're going to speak about events, ties into events a little bit as well in terms of how you attribute for events and things like that. So I love brand marketing. I think it gets a bad rep sometimes, and I think it's just about how you sell it internally, really.
Nice one, yeah. And I think it's definitely is a challenge. Like, a lot of the people listening today will be B2B technology marketers. Sure. Hopefully a few in the sales side as well, or go to market. We've tried to kind of incorporate, started off very much as a marketing podcast, but since then we've tried to bring in more sales and go to market and revenue operations to kind of give a more holistic view of the function that's happening right now. And there's been great insights around that and how they can kind of combine it. And I think it is a challenge, I think, for marketers to, like you mentioned there, in companies that might not see the upfront value, if they don't see the conversions right now of, like, let's say the smaller percentage of your market who are, on the demos, who are closing right now, and it's, you can attribute your actions to revenue and you can kind of see the ROI is, I think it's a bit of a difficult one for marketers to showcase that ROI and not just, for companies who don't maybe take the anecdotal route, but there is truth in it and how it works. How or what channels have you found working well in 2026? It's a mixed bag, obviously, now with AI and buyers doing a lot more research and traffic going down as a result of people not needing to go to particular sites all of the time. They're still really important, but the numbers might be down in the monthly reports. What channels are you finding good channels for winning new business or building that awareness from a marketing perspective, and then also from a sales perspective, if there's any insights you had on sales channels?
The downward spiral of traffic and that kind of stuff, I don't really, I'm not buying into that totally. I do think there is a lot businesses can do and marketing teams can do to kind of like win that traffic back. And I think people are learning now with AEO techniques, and people are doing stuff on Reddit, people are doing stuff on YouTube. I think we're getting great value out of that. I personally, we've had dips. We're not getting traffic from everywhere we used to get traffic, but now I feel like it's actually kind of leveling out a little bit. In terms of channels, really, like LinkedIn is obviously the main channel, really, from our perspective, to kind of communicate with customers, communicate with prospects, do brand work. I'm a big believer in individuals. So as much as the company page matters a lot, and we try our best for our company page, it's about the reps, it's about me, it's about the CEO, it's about, are we posting regularly? Is it all making sense? If you're connected with all these people, does it all make sense? Is there similar themes across the way? So I try to empower. And with AI, that's really helpful, because now it's easier to empower others out there to create and to publish. So that's a huge benefit. Before, the idea of getting the CEO to do a blog post or write an article or do a post on LinkedIn seemed like a very daunting thing. Now it's not. Now it's much easier to do. I think there's a lot of value in that. And one kind of side note of a brand, like where we're getting value as well, as just sending account executives or salespeople to events, not necessarily sponsoring, but sending them with a mission of telling them, and then using the whole social media around that in terms of this person is going to this event, and they're there to network, and they're there to make connections, and they're there to kind of bump up their kind of profile in terms of mine going to this and do prospecting around it. That seems to be working really well. So it's just maybe looking at, traditional channels in a different way as well. So and maybe going back to stuff that didn't work before, now that we have AI capabilities and we can do things a bit more automated, a bit quicker. So loads of learnings at the moment, really.
Yeah, it's rapidly changing, but it's exciting as well. And like you mentioned there, you'll see a lot of hype and, this tactic works now. But the fundamentals rarely go out of, if you create a good piece of content or you have a really good audience set for your paid advertising, if it's a different channel or if it's a different medium that you're doing it on, if it's like a Reddit ad, or even if you can do that, or, sponsored YouTube ads, if it's different than what you were doing 5 years ago, doesn't mean it's bad or wrong. It just means times are changing, and it's always evolved, hasn't it, really?
I agree. And we're a big relationship, and I am too. The first thing I'll do when I join an organization is to try and meet as many people as possible, whether it's internal staff to customers to people around the network. And I'll try and build as many connections far and wide as I possibly can and continue that flow going as long as I'm in the organization. The reason being is those contacts are so valuable in terms of being able to reach out on a topic, to do a webinar, because generally they're more than happy to do these things. But it's about having the personal relationships to make them happen and to make it all happen in a nice flow, so you have a well built out marketing calendar. Those things still work. The relationship stuff, getting thought leaders out there to speak on behalf of a topic or maybe your product, but maybe the ethos of your product, all of that stuff, it really still works well, because people listen to people. They might not listen to, AI generated blogs or AI generated Twitter comments or any of this kind of stuff. But the real content, I think people, they see value in that, and they want to hear from their peers. So, no matter where I work, it's the human to human kind of stuff generally that's the core. And then you can transcribe it and repurpose it in 100 million ways afterwards. But you need to get that human to human stuff first.
100% agree. And it's like that as well. It's like you can go to AI and get the aggregate of, everybody's opinions,
Yeah.
mushed into one. And like we speak about marketing, we're trying to position and differentiate. And it's just like a pure contradiction when you go in there and you go to a model that might not be trained on your company or your values or anything like that. It's just the pure open source Claude or ChatGPT, whatever you decide to use. And people go in expecting that it's going to solve all the marketing problems, but it couldn't be further from the truth, really, because you haven't captured, something valuable enough for your audience to say this company X is, actually providing something new. They have a different experience from maybe an industry that, isn't taken into account in that first prompt. It's something like a lived experience that you bring through. So I'd be on that train of thought as well in terms of unique insights, but using AI to actually, I was speaking about this last week. It's like using AI to enable better conversations, like let it take care of certain work that would have taken a long time to do, but didn't actually impact the conversation, but use it to improve the conversation, or more research that can have a better conversation as a result of what findings you found. So I think it's interesting how you can combine two.
And I'm an absolute AI convert. I love what it's doing to marketing, to be honest. The way I would have built teams in the past has completely changed. The way I think about how we should produce a piece of content has completely changed. And even I think there's a wave of things, like certainly on the initial wave of AI, I was like, this is fabulous for creating content and, being able to repurpose, and you can prompt and you can really hone content. You can do loads of things there. Now I suppose I'm on the wave of agents, and where can I relook at my marketing team, look at areas where this is actually keeping them up at night, or this is actually making them work past 5 o'clock, and can we remove those elements? So like, I don't want everyone working outside of hours to produce great stuff. I want them to be able to do it within their working day. And what is that? What are those tasks that are keeping people up at night? I think we're solving a lot of those problems with agents. Like looking at some of the things, I have to do all the meta tagging myself, or the Yoast plugin stuff. I have to do all that kind of stuff. But maybe an agent can actually generate a lot of that. Or, maybe the way we even put a webinar up on the website, we're now re-looking at things like that and saying, actually, that could be a 2-click scenario rather than, a 30-minute, 40-minute setup scenario. Like, I think that's where AI is, for me anyway. I'm on that kind of curve now of where can we solve agents. Now, I'm not an extremist. I don't think it's going to take over everything. And from a content perspective, I do agree it needs to start with a core human-to-human message. Interview your CEO, interview your customers, start there, interview experts, and then start to repurpose. But if you kind of start with AI stuff, you end up in that slop kind of scenario that everyone talks about. And yeah, we have to avoid that as marketers easily, because it's easy to fall into.
It is definitely, and it's the whole kind of the old kind of age saying. It's like, good data in, good
Exactly.
result, bad data in, bad result. And it's the same thing across every layer of AI. It's like we all have the same AI, it's going to be who can use it better. And it really comes from your own data, whether that be, the intelligence that is your own, the IP that you have within your company, the insights that no one else knows. And it speaks true for the content as well. It's like if you can start from a really good base point of quality content, new insights, experiences, it just makes the output better. Besides, everyone has the same tool we can all use, but it's, some people are going to use it better. And I think people overlook that fact that you actually need to train models and agents on like quality data that, otherwise you're just making a very efficient and quick mess in a kind of a weird way. You're just getting something bad done quicker. So it's interesting.
I agree totally.
And that kind of runs in nicely to our next part of the conversation, which is kind of still on the brand, but could also work on the demand piece as well, because I know that's a really important part to acknowledge in terms of brand can get you so far, but also you do need to convert that awareness and, that demand when it does arrive. So content can be, I guess, a wide approach, not just social media content or blogs, but it can be sales enablement, it could be case study, it could be testimonial videos, and these can be used across different parts of the buying journey to help move people from maybe problem unaware to all the way to make a decision between choosing to opt for your company and sign that contract. So in your opinion, Micheál, what role does content actually play across the wider marketing engine for a B2B tech company?
Everywhere. Like it has to, a marketing team, and we can do things now, and it goes back to the AI stuff, and I don't want to make this an AI podcast, but what marketers were what we were wanted to do, what salespeople wanted us to do, or leadership wants us to do, we would have felt like we had no bandwidth to get that far. We couldn't, you can't create enough content to go across the whole funnel, across every deal, across every ABM account. You couldn't do that physically. Or you needed a giant marketing team, or you needed some agency out there to start spending content for you who didn't really know your customer. And that was the blocker there. But now we can. Now with AI, we can go way deeper. And like, I would even go down to take the hardest of the hard. Because we talked earlier about like the industry that I am in, and it's very regulated. Like, we might have a very regulated customer, one of the biggest logos in the world, and we're trying to expand it. So we're already in there. But I would create a piece of content just for that one customer, just explaining why we should expand the account. So this is like what you've done with us in the past. This is the case study just for you. This is your results so far. This is what other peers like you are doing with our product, and this is where you should go next. And that's like a 3-page slick sheet just for 2 pairs of eyes. Like just 2 people who own that account or main users in that account, and the goal is that they share it internally, and this becomes a bit of a playbook for expanding that account. And that I think that shows how far and specific I will go with a piece of content, and I think that's worth creating. And that kind of ties everything together. Maybe what I was speaking about in terms of customer success, sales, marketing working together as a unit, because that piece of content is now really, it's a collaborative approach there to get to that. What is customer success? What did they do in the past that was successful? Marketing, have we any other case studies that kind of tell a story of where they need to go? Sales, can you create a kind of a roadmap here of them to get to the point where we want to get them to? It's a real, like, if you think of it 3 pages, you can almost take a page each and try and polish it. I personally find that approach is something that you could never go to that level of depth before. And now that we're going to that level, we're seeing so much, there's so much love in that. Everyone's like, yeah, I'm really buying into this, and it's being successful. Like, I think our customers appreciate the level of depth and consideration and the way we're thinking about their account and what they're doing. All the way back then to the top of the funnel where we're creating something for everybody. And it's completely broad, but it has a specific message in terms of the way we want to tell a story. So, and I'm enjoying being able to do some of that stuff now that you just couldn't get to. So that's an exciting shift.
It is, and I actually like that analogy, bringing it back in terms of it's not just the marketing team's role, but you can bring in the other departments and functions, like you mentioned there, in terms of sales, customer success, and everyone can kind of play a role and be a content creator in their own right, where they're adding that kind of human element once again to it. But AI is enabling, obviously, the speed and the efficiency and the collaboration. But the real insight is actually the human to human element, where the other 2 people at the other end of the proposal or the kind of presentation are receiving something that's been put together by 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 other people who have put a lot of effort into it and made it very personalized to them, which I think is quite exciting. And when people think of content, they might think of when they say to a board or a C-suite that, like, we must invest in content for our B2B tech company, everybody's doing it, the default is probably like they might think of a few posts on LinkedIn or taking photos or a couple of videos here. But like, when you actually just think about it from the purpose of a company's success, it goes much deeper than that and wider in terms of the whole buying journey. And there's a bit of content that you can kind of create at every step of your buyer's journey with your company.
We're doing something really interesting there in terms of like I love starting with something that I love kind of telling the story of. We ended up here with the piece of content in terms of, was an ebook, or was that 3-pager that went to a specific company, or it was like some big brand awareness piece that we did. But I love telling the story about where it came from, because I think people then see the depth in what we're trying to do. Like, you could start with an interview with your CEO. You could start with an interview with that with a customer. We're doing some interesting stuff where, like, there's a lot of data now within the tooling that we have. Like we use Gong for our customer QBRs. So like a lot of our QBRs are recorded, or training days are recorded, pulling insights from that to kind of kind of pull stories or messages, or able to find things. Like I'd be searching, for example, I'm looking for a certain success story about this piece of functionality, and then suddenly I'm trailing through 3 years of Gong videos, and I can actually find some nice snippets and go, oh yeah, that's an interesting story. Maybe I reach out to that person and try and develop it out. That was impossible. You couldn't do that before. So it's a new era really in terms of being able to source material yourself. So it's definitely, and we're on a learning path as well. Like it's all changing very rapidly and new functionality. So, but I'm loving this new world of content creation. Really, we can do so much more stuff.
You've been running events now, Micheál, at scale for years, even before your time at VisibleThread. How do you see, I guess, events earning their place in B2B tech marketing? And how do you defend that budget, let's say, to a CFO when you're looking at maybe taking a stand at an event, or creating your own event, for example, for customers, and bringing everyone to one location and online? How do you kind of justify the spend, and how do you kind of communicate this is the real benefit of an event to our B2B tech company?
I absolutely adore events. Like I think like events, and then I think maybe they got a bad rep because there was a period there after maybe the pandemic where was like, do we need to actually go back and do events again? Because we lived for a period of time without them. And we invested a lot in virtual events during that period, and we learned some amazing things there. So a lot of virtual conferences, which I still do today, and we get tons of value from that. I certainly do divide it into categories in terms of attribution. So like there is virtual events, there's webinars, there's the sponsored events where we're getting a booth. There is the sales events where I talked about earlier, we might buy a ticket for reps to walk floors and network. And then there's the hosted events where, maybe they're customer conferences, or like what we do, forums around the US. We do like small events in different states to meet different people. So I divide it into different ones. And I certainly would be very clear in terms of how the attribution works for those different events. For example, the forums, the customer events where we're trying to bring prospects there too, but mainly it's about meeting our customers, talking about expansion, doing product updates. You might have 100 people in the room, you might have 200 people in the room, you might only have 20 people in the room, depending on what state or region we do it in. That is all about nurturing. So what I think it worked well the last couple of years as a tip would be attributing the expansion that would have come from the logos that were at that event maybe 6 months later. So if we do an event in January, I'd be looking at it in June and saying, did anyone expand during that time? Did any renewals move really successfully during that time of people that were in that audience? So rather than like doing first touch attribution in terms of like how many leads did it create, how many new business did it create, it probably didn't do anything, because whose first touch with a company is going to their physical event? Nobody. You'd have to have some relationship with them beforehand. So I think being very clear with your CFO it's because they're the expensive ones. It's the ones where you're buying people dinner. I think costs the most, and you're paying for AV and microphones and that kind of stuff, and like banners and things like that. They all cost. So that's where the expense is, and you can kind of go, do we need this? But if I kind of go back and say, well, the last one we did, which was 6 months ago, every account that was in that room renewed and 3 of them expanded. Oh, okay, that's a different scenario. And that 3 expansions is probably 10x the amount that event cost. If we didn't do that event, would it have expanded? I'm not sure, but are we taking the risk if we don't do it? I think that's a great conversation to have. And like events are great because you can, if you get a bit of a strategy going, we kind of do it multi-state, multi-geo, where we were in Brighton before Christmas, and we're in London just after Christmas, and we're in Huntsville in the summer, and we're in DC every couple of months. So like we have a bit of a strategy of keeping them fairly low cost, but also being able to hit a wide range of users and potential prospects, etc. The sponsored events, I wouldn't say I'm growing out of love with the sponsored events, because people start to panic in my own organization saying we're not going to do these things anymore. But like, I do think you do need to set a real goal of why you're going to these. They are expensive. Like if you're sponsoring a booth at anything, it's multiple thousands depending on how many attendees are going to these things. And we all know when people go to these events, are they actually looking to buy software? They're probably not. They're looking for thought leadership and different things as well. So I think what I find with those events is about you have to have a strategy. You need to make sure that we're doing the prospecting beforehand in terms of, we're pre-booking meetings, we're pre-booking customers, we're making sure that we're getting in front of the people. There can't really be an excuse of, oh, so and so was at the event, we never met them, and we just couldn't find them. I was like, oh, you should have made that happen beforehand. There really is a game plan and that's a combined. So that's CS and sales and marketing again. Right, I've paid 5,000 quid for this event. We're a month out. What are we doing here? Like, so who's going? What accounts do we know are going? How can we make sure that it's going to be valuable? And yeah, when you go to the CFO and say, oh yeah, we have a game plan between marketing, sales, and CS, it's easier. So it's like, okay, that's a different conversation rather than marketing had bought this thing and who knows what we're doing. So I think definitely there is a fight with sponsors events due to the cost. Is it still worthwhile? But if you have a good game plan, I absolutely think it is worthwhile.
Looking at events for the rest of the year, maybe now the summer you might be doing some of your own internal ones, and then maybe as the autumn kind of picks up again, there might be more kind of industry events after kind of the summer break. But from sounding at that, it's like the structure actually have your plan in place long before you just arrive on the day or the week before. Have your measurement strategy set out, know who's going. Those would be key takeaways from Micheál's insights. So really valuable ones to listen back on. So before we get to the 1% insight, Micheál, I have a few quick rapid fire round questions for you. So we'll kick off with the first one, which is the best resource for B2B tech marketers. It could be a book, a podcast, a newsletter, anything that you enjoy reading or listening to.
I'm in a couple of Slack communities that I really rely on. There is CMO huddles and there is B2B United in the UK. And there is another CMO Alliance is very good as well. And there's one called TAC in the States that's very good as well. Who the former head of content of HubSpot, he owns that community. I just love talking to people. And I think this conversation, like, we'll learn more talking from each other. And this is my specific problem rather than listening to a podcast that's on a generic problem, potentially. I feel like you need to, with something, so because B2B marketing can be really specific. I have this issue and it really ties into this type of specific audience. And I think that's where some of the content can kind of let people down a little bit. But I always find communities are great. So there's some of them are free and they're great for networking. They're great for careers and jobs, and they're great for, I have this random idea. Has anyone ever done it before? So that would be my resource that I lean on. If I ever have a problem, I generally go into like CMO Alliance and I just go, this is my problem. Can anyone help? And I might get someone in the West Coast of America that comes in and says, I've solved that. And it's great. Okay, fabulous. I never met you before, but you seem to know what you're talking about.
That's class. No, I must check those out. Yeah. The second question I have for you, Micheál, is a company, and you can't say VisibleThread, that's doing great B2B tech marketing, in your opinion.
It's great. Like, there's loads out there, really. Kind of a new company, and it's in the AI kind of spin. Clay, I'm really loving. It's worth scrolling through Clay's LinkedIn feed. They're an AI company, but they're very personable. Like a lot of their staff are front of house on their LinkedIn feed. It's funny, but it's serious. It has a really good mix. They're not huge, Clay, although it's like almost like a fairly well-known name now that a lot of people use the product. But I really like the diversity in all their different types of posts. Some of it is very thought leadership, but some of it is just funny. And then some of it is product focus, and then some of it is really human relatable. I think they do an excellent job of mixing it up. And yeah, they seem to be good fun over there.
If you weren't in marketing, what would you be doing?
I don't know. I wonder, not hurling for Tipperary. I don't think that I would have made that happen. So my background is funny because like I originally thought I was going to, all my family are teachers. Maybe that's an Irish thing. Like I think like if you come from a big family in Tipperary, your teachers or nurses is a way to go. I probably would have done that line of teaching, and maybe that's where the MTU stuff has come out of, the lecturing there for sure. But my kind of degree and background was software engineering. Like I'm a very data minded person. I was going to be a software engineer. If I didn't, I had a startup when I first started my career, and I just loved the more business side of it than actually doing the software. But I was doing both in the startup, and as soon as I got a chance to not build, because I wasn't very good at building, to be honest, hopefully I would have got better. But I think probably either a teacher or a software engineer, if that's possible.
This has been brilliant, Micheál. And the last question I have, which is the last part of the 1% insight, which is, what is your 1% insight that you would share with our listeners when it comes to B2B tech marketing or B2B tech sales?
I think, like, I am a big ambassador of how teams collaborate. I think it's worth head of marketing, head of sales, head of CS, head of product sitting down once a quarter, once a month, as frequently as you can, to say, are we actually working effectively together? I think, and then trying to like bring that down to the teams. Like I think most problems come from that. Like we're not speaking correctly to our customers. Well, if I was talking to CS a bit more, that would happen. We're not speaking about product enough. Well, maybe if I knew the product better, I'd be better at that. Some of our deals are stalled, and we kind of it's a bit of hit and hope right now. Well, maybe I can impact that if I knew what the cycles were and how they started and where they're progressing. There's always a want or ideas from other departments to feed into marketing, but we can be very like closed doors as well. Like often we have to look at our own departments as well and say, like, are we accessible? We're always asking from a marketing perspective, are we willing to take like ideas from other departments? And I have a really good relationship with my colleagues in all the organizations I've had, but like there's always been hurdles to jump over and old practices we had to rip out. And I think it's worth, as regular as you can possibly do it, to sit down with that group and ask the question, are we working well together? Like, or is there something you wish I was doing better to impact it? And how can we like make that come down into the teams?
Thank you very much, Micheál. Where can our listeners learn more about yourself and also VisibleThread?
So LinkedIn on here for myself. Like I try to do as much thought leadership content. I had a baby very recently, so that's kind of gone downhill a little bit in terms of my thought leadership content.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. That's gone to the wayside a little bit, but it's going to come back soon. So I do a lot of like newsletters and podcasts like this with great people like yourself, and try to do as much as I possibly can. And VisibleThread really is VisibleThread.com, and we're always hiring in Ireland or the States, and we're always trying to grow the team and improve what we're doing. So yeah, keep an eye on. We're an Irish-based company as well, doing quite well. So that's a exciting part of it. So no, and thank you very much for having me on. It's been great.